Well, what can I say? A usual day in Russia. Yes, the big arsenal of the Russian army was kaboomed today with the help of probably sabotage mission. This big Russian arsenal is located between Dubki and Warsaw and actually not that far away from Moscow. Moscow is here. And you may say that even compared to the size of the Moscow city, this ammunition depot is really huge. Not only Russia stored their ammunition on top in those hangars, but also underground. And here we have the pictures from inside of those hangars. As you may see, the Russian air defense systems ammunition was stored there. More images and yes, some of the underground facilities there, lots of the artillery shells. And what is that? Probably Buk air defense missiles, and here we have the anti-tank missiles. But now it is absolutely no-go. There were several of the kabooms registered. Some of the shells landed 10 kilometers away from the facility. From what I remember, and I reviewed lots of those kabooms, this one is probably one of the most massive ones. The last time the Russian ammunition depots were on fire in November, and now it's the new wave which Ukraine probably conducted. And yes, this facility is not that close to Ukraine, however Ukraine has some CERN drones which might reach this target. And yeah, the shells from the storage, they landed elsewhere, just on the road. You may see the distance is roughly 5 kilometers at least. The fire detection satellites confirmed the fire all around the facility, maybe just this part survived. So Russia definitely lost a huge amount of their shells, of their ammunition. Shoigu, Gerasimov, where is ammunition? It is burning out there, not far away from Moscow, which is absolutely great news for Ukraine. So Russian forces will have some of the troubles on the front lines. They are in trouble already, but they will be in lack of munition. The storage is called 51st Arsenal of Grau, Russian army, and it looks like it's totaled. At least judging on the videos presented by eyewitnesses, well, maybe this part, just tiny little, survived. But it is still hard to say. I'm waiting for the satellite images and they will come tomorrow. Yeah, just look at this kaboom. It is crazy, like nuclear kaboom. Wow, what an energy. Yeah, this image really shows the scale of this kaboom. It is just enormous. So there were several of the kabooms. One was before, you can see the cloud from it, and just right now in this image there is one more huge detonation, and those are the trees, and it is really far away actually, so the scale is just enormous. Looks absolutely unreal, but it is true. Yeah, actually from what I understood, the storage has two of the areas. Well, this one got fire and this one, I guess, survived 100%. And how many tons of Russian munition was there? Well, no one really knows, but judging on explosion, it was a really huge amount. Well, Russia will struggle on the front lines without it for sure, but Russia unfortunately has its own good friends from Iran and North Korea, plus China, and they might support Russia with some of the munition. Well, China officially it doesn't send some of the artillery shells to Russia, but they might do it via North Korea. I think that they have some CERN scheme via North Korea. So it might slow down the Russian army on the front lines, but not stop completely, unfortunately. But nevertheless, the kaboom is really extraordinary and it's a huge loss for the Russian army. Guys, as usual, I publish some of the raw footages, but not on YouTube. I have my Telegram channel. You are very welcome to check it out. Hello, my friends, and welcome. My name is Dennis, and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go. Alright, now to the front lines. After the short break, Russian army resumes the strikes on Ukrainian positions. However, they do not use those massive attacks with long convoys. Occasionally, some of the vehicles, mostly infantry forces and motorcycles, but they advance. They've tried to move south from Pokrovsk today, expanding the gray zone, but they have losses. And before we go to more detailed analysis, guys, I want to tell you about important news. And guys, to cover absolutely everything, political news, news about Donald Trump and obviously Ukraine, I use the sponsor, the long-term sponsor of this channel, Ground News. And actually I wasn't able to find the better news aggregator, and I started to use Ground News even before their sponsorship. And yeah, still I pay for a subscription myself because it is not a big media corporation, no, they rely on our subscriptions. So I highly recommend you to check this source out with my personal link. It's ground.news/Dennis. You may find it in the video description just below. And that is how you also support my channel, by checking out that link. And obviously subscribing for the ground news. But what I like here that we have a dedicated chapter for the news from Ukraine, and I use it a lot. Let's go to the top news of the day. Russia buries Ukraine, Odessa and Zaporizhia as Kremlin warns peace talks will take time. And yeah, by the time I'm recording this video, Odessa is under attack for the second night consecutive. And Russia does it just the day before negotiations in London. It is crazy. So it's kind of the popular article which has been reviewed by many of the news agencies. You may see the biased distribution, left, right, central, mostly center, which is good as for me. And usually I search for the high factuality to check the news origin. But I usually check the Russian and the Ukrainian sources. For example, this is the Russian opposition source. At least one civilian was unalive because of the yesterday's attack of Russian drones on Zaporizhia. So Putin says that he wants to stop the war in Ukraine, but at the same time they're doing this. It is very strange for any sort of the logic. And Ukrainian media report absolutely the same case, so you may access everything of that, I mean the news origin, by using the ground news. You may search for the news you want to read over here, or you may just click on the right to check out your source. Ground News is the fantastic tool which you may get to access the news from all around the world. The latest information, breaking news, you may compare different information coming from the different countries and news agencies. And you may also filter the information based on factuality reports and biased distribution. That is what I do. So guys, I highly recommend to check out my personal link in the video description just below. It's ground.news/Dennis, or scan the QR code available on the screen. As you probably know, I really filter my sponsors, and I'm really proud to work with Ground News for such a long period. They really do awesome job on their platform, and they do awesome job supporting my channel. Ground News, thank you so much for sponsoring this video. And now guys, let's go back to the front lines. You wonder what happened over here. Well, Russia advanced with their off-road vehicles, if you may call those vehicles off-road. Yeah, there were several of the Oasis cars, 2 were stopped over here and 1 a little later. Crew evacuated and they're hiding in some of the local tree line as usual. But Russians expanded the gray area by moving their scrap metal further. And the job was done by Ukrainian Battalion K2, one of the most effective Ukrainian battalions if we speak about FPV drone usage. And just look at the weather in Ukraine. It is absolutely fantastic, and that's why Russia is using those vehicles with the wheels now. They don't need BMPs, they don't need MTLBs or tanks. The soil is more or less sturdy. And you know guys, we see, I would say, a dead end for the Russian army. They cannot assault any longer. Yeah, they can assault, but without any sort of the success for them with their tactics of the mid waves. It seems like Ukraine somehow, I guess with the help of the FPV drones, was able to handle the defense against those usual Russian gloves tactics. Then Russia assaults at least from 2 of the sides. We saw how the last week Russia intensified their strikes using lots of the forces all across the front lines in the most important hotspots, but again without significant results. They took some ground here and there, but it's really nothing for the forces they lose. And it is understandable that even though Russia has more resources compared to Ukraine, but still, it is unable to reach its military goals. For Russia to occupy Kherson, Zaporizhia, even Donetsk, they need to waste several of their armies right now because of their stupid strategy, and I don't think that they have the other one. I think that it's really impossible to advance, then you have lots of those FPV drones flying. Yeah, Russians share those kind of the videos showing their drone production somewhere, they have the facilities, but those micro schemes, they're outdated already. Ukraine, for example, already uses different types of the micro schemes in the drones which are less vulnerable to the drone jammers. And yeah, those Russian drone jammers are not working against modern Ukrainian FPV drones. And that's why the Russian military bloggers, well, they complain a lot, because they say that they receive those kind of the drone jammers. Their commanders tell them that you'll be alright with that, but in fact, it doesn't work. And if soldiers complain that those drone jammers simply do not work, well, the command tells them to attack again and again because they don't have the other drone jammers. They receive the command from the very top, from Gerasimov, for example, to take some certain place, and they're forced to attack with basically nothing. I actually forgot the last time I saw Ukrainian drone being jammed or something. But Ukraine has the proper drone jammers against the Russian drones, and they work very well. And mainly that was the reason for Russia to switch to the fiber optic drones with the coil and long wire. Now Russia may operate them for a very long distance, up to 10 kilometers of range. They're able to push from those kind of the drones. But still, maneuverability is very low compared to the standard FPV drones, and Ukraine, well, for now it has less of those fiber optic controlled drones. Actually, it's the downside, and our volunteers are working on that as well to produce those drones, because they're also needed. But if we check out like every sort of the map information, you'll see that Ukraine is very effective, way more compared to the Russian army, so we have geolocated images about the Russian losses. And what is here, again, the Russian motorcycle offensive. Also, they hide some of the infantry in the trenches. Again, Ukraine using FPV to kick them out. Plus, it looks like there was some of the Russian armored vehicle, which is being kaputted. The modern war, guys, is really different from the previous ones. The vehicles, they look like the cosplays on Mad Max movie. It's not logical at all from the judgment of the old playbooks of the war, but reality showed that drones, after all, matter. And what was the mighty power before, those tanks, even BMPs, even Russian big Moskva ship, everything of that is absolutely unsecured. But from what I can see, yes, it's my personal opinion, the Western countries' armies are still behind this progress in using FPV drones and surveillance drones. Alright, let's go back to the front lines. Here Russia advanced just with the infantry forces, and they took Sukha-Balka under control. It happened actually 3 days ago, just before the announcement of the ceasefire, which wasn't really a ceasefire, but nevertheless Russians propelled forward over here. Yeah, just a little. They also expanded the gray area, but in Torets direction, in Torets town itself, Russia still struggles to get the settlement fully under control. Ukraine applies significant resistance, as you may say, again with the help of the drones. Alright, in Kursk direction, Ukrainian army still controls the part of the Russian territory. However, this part is really small. Ukraine controls Gornal village over here, and here is Oleshna village, right at the border. But still, Ukraine causes some of the losses to the Russian army. Let's check it out. Yeah, there was the Russian BMP. They tried to get closer to Ukrainian positions, but were kaboomed on the way. And yeah, everything was stopped by the time. Ukraine was also capable to imprison some of the Russian soldiers. I showed them probably in my video yesterday. And what's about the Belgrade Oblast? Well, here you can see the sign. I don't want to click and check it out because, YouTube is kind of restrictive. Well, Russia tries to use their drones, but at the same time they have losses. And here Ukraine uses aviation on Grafovka. So probably Russia tried to send some of the reinforcements which were kaboomed. And yeah, again, I'm gonna show you more of that stuff on my Telegram. And guys, I'm now in a country where I cannot upload on Rumble because it's blocked here somehow. So then I'm gonna return back to my main base. I'm gonna switch on to Rumble to check out and review lots of the videos which came for the last few weeks. Yeah, I haven't been uploaded on Rumble for a long time, but wait for it, it will be something special. Yeah, I know Rumble is not the best platform, but it has a very low censorship. And believe me, I need that low censorship reviewing those kind of the videos. Or those kind of the videos. Yeah, shit happens. An awesome day for Ukrainian HIMARS operators. They kaboomed the Buk Russian air defense radar and also the launcher. The Ukrainian surveillance drone sent some of the signals to the HIMARS operators, and they kaboomed those air defense systems. Great job. But I also have to say not about good news as well, guys. So Ukraine has some of the losses in Sumy region. Definitely Russia wants to attack Sumy, and there are some of the villages under the Russian control already. However, Syrsky, the general commander of Ukraine, says that Ukraine was capable to stop the Russian assault, but Russia is not yet attacking with its main forces. And this is the Ukrainian MRAP Novator, which was stopped and kaboomed with the help of the FPV drone, but at the same time I don't see Ukrainian infantry, doors are open, so crew probably evacuated from this vehicle. Yeah, those big media corporations, sometimes they publish an absolute nonsense, like you may see on this article from the Financial Times, but luckily I used the ground news, so for me it is understandable that this article is not based on factuality. Well, what they say that Vladimir Putin offers to halt Ukraine's invasion along current front line. Wow! So what they say that actually it was idea from the Russian side to recognize, for example, Crimea as the Russian territory and hold the current front line. Maybe I would believe in that if I read just Financial Times, but I checked the other news sources from the Russian side as well, and they say that it's an absolute fake. Kremlin spokesman Peskov already debunked this information in the Russian media. And yes, what a surprise, Russia is not interested in peace in Ukraine. They might just play it with Donald Trump, with Davydov, saying that they're ready, but in fact, no. And there should be a big summit tomorrow about negotiations of peace in Ukraine, but even Rubio is not coming to London. Only Keith Kellogg will be there. Keith Kellogg, who was ignored even by Donald Trump. Kellogg doesn't really matter in those negotiations. I would say Rubio matters more, but the most important person is obviously Trump's friend Davydov, who will go to Moscow this or the next week. We already have the confirmation about his freaking forced visit to Moscow. He should obtain Russian citizenship very soon, because he spends more time in Russia than in USA. And by the way, that's the picture of Donald Trump, which was drawn by the Russian artists that Putin shared with Donald Trump via Davydov. That is what they were talking about. Wow, what a great picture. Trump would absolutely love it. He should put this one on the wall in the White House. And about negotiation itself, well, after all, I think that United States of America will abandon Ukraine. Whether they will keep the military support, it's hard to say. And whether there will be a peace introduced in Ukraine, honestly, I don't believe in that. But at the same time, Peskov told that Russia is not against direct communication with Ukraine, but Ukraine applied a ban on negotiations with Putin, so Peskov asked Ukraine today to lift that ban on negotiations, while Zelensky already responded that we're gonna negotiate after the ceasefire, so Russia should agree on lasting ceasefire, and only then there will be negotiations about lasting peace. Right guys, yesterday I've told you the information which was shared on many of the Ukrainian channels. First of all, that Sweden delivered Saabs, the surveillance airplanes, to Ukraine, but the information was not confirmed. Actually, it was Antonov 26 airplane flying with the call sign welcome. The same airplane was flying back in 2021 with the same call sign welcome. What it did there, maybe some of the training mission, maybe some other navigation looking mission, but it is not the Saab. So now I have the confirmation with actual evidence. Eyewitnesses filmed this particular airplane, so we're still waiting for Saab aircraft. According to the info I have, we're still waiting for Ukrainian F-16s to be upgraded with the radars, which will be able to communicate with those Saabs. For now, Ukraine has just few of those airplanes which are able to communicate, but the tuning or maintenance for upgrade should be done for every of Ukrainian F-16. Yeah, I already shared this one on my Telegram. Your channel is 11 years old today. Wow, 11 years old for my Denis Davydov channel, which was previously a road home channel. I filmed mostly about motorcycles and the usual cringe stuff, and just for the last 3 years I started to film almost every day about the situation and basically the war in Ukraine. And thank you guys for watching me on this long journey. And I just hope someday I'm gonna finish everything of that. I mean, filming about the war. I want peace in Ukraine. I want to stop filming about this stuff, which is very terrible. People are suffering, civilians, every day. It is crazy. And me being in this informational field is also crazy for me personally, but nevertheless, I want to share the awareness about what Russia is doing there, encourage everyone that we should unite against this major threat, not just for Ukraine, but for democratic society in every of the democratic country. So people, I think, should support Ukraine. And thank you guys, by the way, for your kind support by watching my videos, by clicking likes, by sharing, subscribing. You're just awesome. You're the best audience I have, and I think you're the best out there, not just for my channel, but elsewhere from YouTube audience. And about the perspective for me to stop filming those videos about the war, I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel yet. Yes, there are some of the talks about negotiations, about the peace deal, but we see the Russian reaction even on this temporary ceasefire which they put on Easter Day. No, I don't think they're really interested in lasting peace. I think they're escalating and they're just getting mad that they're not able to achieve their military goals on the front lines. With the heavy losses, they got just a couple of the fields per couple of the days or per week sometimes, because Ukraine applied significant defense. And yeah, because of that, Putin just wanted to use Donald Trump to achieve his goal in the other political way. And that is why he wants to negotiate, to continue those negotiations with the United States of America, to fully convince Trump and his team to support Russia and to block everything for Ukraine, military support, intelligence, and to lift sanctions on Russia. That is what Putin wants. And with Donald Trump, he has pretty much good chances. Yeah, thank you again for being with me for such a long time. And now, my friends, please check out my personal link for the Ground News. You may find it in the video description just below. Ground News is the best news aggregator out there, which gives you the awesome opportunity to receive the news from all around the globe and also from Ukraine. I use it every day and I like it a lot. And by clicking the link, you also support the job that I do here on YouTube. Ground News is awesome, and of course, you are, my friends. You are awesome as well. As usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.